Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the 41st
Hello.
episode of DevKami, and I am Chilio.
I'm not Tristan. I'm singing, just so you know. Just in case that 1 week you forget about me, which I don't mind. We just engage again.
That's how realistic people are.
Yeah.
So let's go to our usual one. What's happening next week or this week?
Yeah. So this weekend we have two interesting events. On Saturday we have the Break the Fake Hackathon KL. It is actually a hackathon about fake news, or more like anti-fake news. So I'm not sure whether you can still register. As usual, you can get the detail at devkami.com/meetups. The next one that is interesting is by Malcolm.
Gatsby.js.
Collabs. Yes, it's about Gatsby.js. It will be happening on Saturday at 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Collabs, the Starling.
Malcolm.
I respect Malcolm because he can literally do this every weekend, few days as well.
Yeah, and he's a very good trainer, very passionate as well.
Yes.
So if you're around, check him out.
Yes, support him, and I think he deserves to be supported because he kind of do this for a long time.
Yep. Okay.
So the next event is Tuesday, F-Off Meetup. This actually happens at CIMB.
Yeah, it's a
KL Central.
Yeah, it's a co-op design.
Yeah.
So it's actually like collab. They put it as a collaboration between DevOps Meetup and CIMB.
One of the CIMB's initiatives.
Yeah. I don't know. Just check it out.
Yeah, we should check it out.
Yeah, around
I'm not sure whether you can.
How do you go there from?
Yeah, it's around.
How do you go there?
Oh, actually, it's very simple. If you take the MRT, drop at the museum station, the museum CIMB building is literally beside it. You may need to go to Q Central, then Q Central is literally beside CIMB building. Or if you go from LRT, then you drop at KL station.
That's where Nintex is, right? Do you remember Nintex? Okay. Similar direction.
So it's not easy. It's not hard to go. You will actually easily go there from KL Central. Once you reach KL Central or the KL Centrals, then it's easy for you to go. It's literally connected.
Yep. It's KL Central.
So,
just ping one of us on Facebook or something like that.
I literally work there, so I'm still thinking whether I should go.
Yeah. So any fun stuff going on?
There's one more fun stuff. There's actually one more fun stuff. There's a AWS Innovate online conference. So it's an AWS event. You can watch online. I suggest you go as well because
there's a blockchain thing from Monash also, right?
Yeah. I'm not so sure about that.
Just check it out. You're free. Check it out. But if you can support their meetup,
yes.
Come and meet us. We'll be there.
Correct. Okay. From the tech industry for 1 week. Know anything that's interesting?
There's a lot of. I don't know what actually happened.
Really interesting.
I don't think there's any. Besides downtime, we had a lot of downtime for these few months.
Yes, Cloudflare down, right?
Yeah, Cloudflare because of a bad deployment script.
Oh yeah, this last week. Yeah, the week before last week. We also have Angular conference, which I missed.
Yeah. So we went to the after party.
Correct. Very interesting.
Very interesting. The timekeeping is on track.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a birthday celebration as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't see much event happening. At least I don't remember.
No, not much going on last week. You didn't miss much. You didn't miss much.
Okay, cool. I was worried that you was
So
something.
yeah, what do we want to? So today's topic is actually random. So
Yeah, it's random because we literally have no to talk about.
yeah,
Then in between we
no,
actually do that. So
it's actually
yeah.
random because we're supposed to talk about random
Oh
topic.
really? Promise that, isn't it? We kind of
Yeah.
promise that.
Right, there's the randomness of
So
the show.
yeah. So the thing is, originally I thought of doing about what's the earliest exposure to technology. Then I realized that, and the reason for that is because I spent last week watching Stranger Things. Then I
Yeah.
realized that actually China reminds me that we
We
already
did
did that
that.
before.
We did that
Huh?
sort of, but we can do it with other people.
Nah, let's not. Let's not.
Yeah.
Then we have this interesting happen. I kicked half of my. I
I
killed
haven't
two-thirds
watched
of the
it,
people.
so don't spoil me yet.
It's put this way: Stranger Things
Since
is all
since
about
since
cliche.
we're since it's random, I need to voice my complaint on the third season of it's a third season, right?
Yes.
Of Stranger Things is that I actually caught up to the first two episodes.
Uh-huh.
They are,
Spoiler
they are
alert.
no, they are very no. There's no spoilers. The complaint is actually the whole show is very dimly lit. It's very dark,
Oh
literally
yeah,
dark.
the story have been dark.
No, it's not the story that is dark. It's the what you call it, the scenes and stuff are very dark.
It is
It's too dark for me to
intentional.
watch. Like it's just a
I
lot of
know.
black stuff and then some voice screaming. Then dark stuff happening. Whatever that is. That's my complaint, I guess.
Yeah, it's intentional. But my biggest complaint of the whole season is actually that I know it's about cliche Stranger Things, so that's my thing. But it really grew into their own show, but it need to end sooner or later. So we might have it. They have one more season. That's it. So and a lot of reminders of old movies, old science fiction movies, and that's interesting actually.
I actually have a question. I actually have something like something that came up around like last week.
Uh-huh.
Like because I don't actually read that much of science fiction,
Yep.
but what constitutes science fiction? I actually don't consider Star Wars as science fiction. I put it as a fantasy in a more what you call
Yeah.
it, advanced kind of settings.
Okay. So from this, there is actually it's very tough to define. We don't have that, which is why people just call it speculative
Yeah.
fiction nowadays. But that being said, there is some story that is very strongly known as science
Put
fiction.
this way, something that blurred the line, which is Shannara.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Is that considered fantasy or science fiction? Because
That
the
is
background is actually
more.
the human destruction of spoilers.
Yes, but the cause of the destruction is actually by magic
Yeah.
power,
Same with
unexplained power.
I'm not sure if you know View of Time.
Uh-huh.
The
I didn't
set
know
the
about that.
background setting is also pretty much sciency. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not always clear, but there is certain genre of fiction that is
Yeah.
very clear cut on that it's heavy on science. We have for example Arthur C. Clarke. It's definitely a science fiction because all
Yeah.
the things that he said, he described in the story,
Yep.
you have explanation. So you're
Or
talking
like
about
basically a vision to the future or something like that.
no, it's not really necessarily only vision to the future, but it can science fiction leans toward that. It leans toward the future, but a future where you can explain the world. For example, in Star Wars, they explain things like we have the Force and something, and that's it, right?
Yeah. It's very
How does the Force work? There's no explanation,
it's very fantasy,
and
but
that's it. It's the fundamental. Correct. Whereas in Arthur C. Clarke, you have a story about American spaceship that crashed into a neutron star.
Yeah.
And in the final moment, the spaceship broadcasts the American anthem, and due to the frequency synchronization and all that, the neutron star actually capture the radio frequency and broadcast the American anthem to the rest of the world, our universe. And the science work there because there's an
Yeah.
explanation
I think
for
the
it.
expense is also
So-
pretty heavy in science.
Correct.
I'm not sure
Technology
about
comes in.
like Neil Stephenson because I only read several of his books. Like one of them, like Anathem. Anathem is borderline between, I don't know, fantasy because they basically worship mathematics.
Anathem is science
Really?
fiction because, but you understand, abstract mathematics are not well explored in the world of science fiction.
Yeah, but the whole
Often-
storyline is pretty
It's
much
more
like it's not even
it's
fantasy.
nice.
It's like a mystery thriller.
Yeah. Anathem is written in a way that it's a mystery. Something happened.
Yeah.
What? But there is also a philosophy behind it. The philosophy here is, can a monastery of science that essentially worship science, right?
Yeah.
But they explain a lot of things that are usually explained in science fiction, abstract mathematics, because often in science fiction, you're talking about tangible things, cloning of dinosaurs, nanobots, robots, etc., etc. Abstract mathematics, by definition, is not as well explored. Even when they do, it's usually manifest in terms of the physical object. Arthur C. Clarke, again, good example. What they do is he described things like space elevators, and what you need based on his maths. He actually do the maths behind it. But that said, there's another thing about science fiction is things are well-known technology, not magic technology. So the Expanse is a very good example. Up until the discovery of alien technology, everything is pure physics until this advanced comes in. But we still call it science fiction instead of magic because those things that happen at the alien cause can be explained with science. Know what I mean? Science fantasy.
Yeah, I sort of lost you there. Nope, I lost you. I lost you totally.
Okay. Is the network still on? Can you still hear me?
It's still on, but I lost you completely.
Oh, you lost my chain of thought.
No, I lost your feet. Yeah.
Oh, you lost my feed. I
Yeah.
got bad internet. So just so you know, downstairs, and between here is the hallway. There's no plug for me to add an extender. So let me repeat the whole idea of science fiction again.
Yeah.
Even though the thing within science fiction that is not explained can be explained with science, it's just a matter of whether it is being explained at all, right? So often you've got things like robots exist, right? We know that humans built it. They do not necessarily explain how we built it.
You know about the book
So,
Goethe Escher Park?
Yes.
How would you categorize that book?
And I didn't read it. It's on my list, but I didn't read it yet. So I can't tell. I cannot categorize that.
I'll let you read it first. Probably
Yes.
the first chapter.
But another hand, there's another way of
It's good.
looking at science fiction. Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
Isaac Asimov robot series do not actually have explain how the robot works, other than the
Yeah.
fact that it looks like robot. And why it's not magic? Because it is made by man.
Yeah.
But it's not explained how man made it.
Yeah.
Right?
I
So
the reason why I have this question is because I recently read, I haven't finished it yet, To Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the base for Blade Runner. And it doesn't feel like science fiction to me. I think I lost swimming. Yep, I'm gonna share some of the link to the books on the
yeah.
chat while we at it. I lost you for a
The
while.
robot drip Android chip is actually also the basis of my computer out of RAM. I need to restart. You mind?
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait for you. While I'm gonna post some of them on the feed then.
I have to.
So I'm gonna I'm going to post some of the books. I'm gonna use a Goodreads one because because I trace my reading with a Goodreads. So add me on that. Okay, to Android Stream of Electric Sheep, and the book version is so much weirder than the movie one. The movie is actually much saner because there's a fixation of like pet animals and like all those weird stuff like people who doesn't qualify to be migrated offal, they call like chicken heads and stuff, which is really weird. So, and I'm gonna share some of the ones that I mentioned. So Anatom is actually a very painful book to read. I finished it, but it took me like a while to finish it, and I can, but because I'm a bit stupid, it took me by average each day I can finish like maximum 2 or 3 pages of them before my head explodes. So also that time when I was actually pretty young, so wasn't that exposed to all this stuff yet. Probably nowadays is actually much more easier for me to absorb. So, and the iRobot series by Asimov. I actually didn't read some of these classics, so which is something that I need to catch up for this year. iRobot, which is also made into a movie. So, Shana, I just want to bring it in case you're interested. By Terry Brooks. It's not related actually. It's just that the background story is a human destruction of the world. So because of radiation, we are mutated into like beings, fantasy beings like dwarf, trolls, and so. Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blink Docker.
Yeah. Turn it off when you're not using it.
Yeah. So where do we stop?
Where do you stop? Around like Blade Runner.
So Blade Runner is one of those stories where they don't explain a lot of stuff other than the fact that it's in the future, technology everywhere.
Did you read it?
No, I didn't read it. But I based this based on only one thing: Johnny Mnemonic.
you have to read it. It's so bloody weird. The book is so much weirder. Like I'm glad they didn't include them in the movies.
Yeah, PKD is a well known to be a weird story, but for some reason his story is very easily adapted to the screen. I do not know how they do it.
I actually grew up with his story. some of the
Okay.
stories.
I grew up with Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov.
Basically, I grew up with whatever books that I have
Yeah, I know.
in the libraries and stuff.
I know, same here actually. So, science fiction and fantasy, right? The short answer is science fiction is heavy toward things that we make. Fantasy is not necessarily so. It's a world that's different than ours.
I think it depends also. There's also a category called high fantasy for those people that are not familiar. High fantasy is normal fantasy. They have a world that is pretty familiar, similar to whatever we have right now, with some, of course, some differences with different creatures or some like overall for. But high fantasy, they have a different world, like, or different way of working. Just like in a way, like Lord of the Ring is one of the. It's actually the what you call it, the
high fantasy.
The what the something that gives birth to high fantasy.
Yeah.
So
it's a world building.
Yeah, it's a world building.
But yeah, it's about world building, but it's about how you build the world. That separate between science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah.
But it's not so clear cut. You should. There's this book called N.K. Jemisin, the Stone Sky series. The world had a physics element in it, but the technology, and there is of course technology built by man, but there's also technology powered by magic, which caused the disaster they see. I need to find the title. Okay, Jemisin. She wrote a series.
There's also this series called I forgot. Miss Bond. Miss Bond is similar to a mixture because they're trying to put in like alchemy with I'm not sure if I think alchemy is considered fantasy. Alchemy, but a bit sciencey kind of stuff. With there's no magic, but it's like the way they can. There's no like channeling magic and stuff, but there is I can say it's similar to Full Metal Alchemist side. It's not exactly that magical, but there's a certain rules like our alchemy does, but it's not exactly out of thin air.
Right. So, they had the system. They have their own system of the world.
Yep.
It's like what happened is their law of nature, that is their own law of nature.
Yep.
To allow that phenomenon to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. That is also one of those things that science fiction don't have because they're kind of limit to that. There is the book I want to say is actually the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin. That book is the Broken Earth series. The first one is called the 5th season.
I think. Okay. I've seen this before.
It's heavy toward fantasy, but the way they execute it is very science fiction-y.
Oh, okay.
I
actually got the ebook. I just haven't started it yet.
So the book is the one they describe is there is magical element, but it's because of the force of the world. So what these people can do is they have the ability to channel the power. So
how far are you into this series?
I'm done.
Oh, really? Until it's a trilogy. Okay.
Yeah, it's a trilogy. I might finish it last year or something.
Okay. I saw it when I'm doing shopping. Like I see it's pretty much they put it up to the front like they're promoting this series.
Yeah.
When I was shopping last year.
Because she actually got a Hugo for this, I believe.
Oh, okay. That explains.
Yeah. So science fiction and science fantasy, there is a clear.
Yeah. I think science fiction is as much as possible to try to be following our real world, the constraint of a real world and constraint of physics at least, physics of the current known era. At least.
Correct. Both science fiction and fantasy try to bring wonder, but science fiction, the wonder have tendency to be technologically driven.
Yeah. And
Whereas
more,
fantasy is the world.
I think more achievable in a way.
Not always,
Hello, Tristan.
but yeah.
Hey, hello.
We managed to
Uh,
find a topic from the randomness
yeah.
from the sea of random. We are talking
All right.
about the difference between science fiction and fantasy
Ah,
Correct.
cool.
fictions. Yeah.
So, but here's something that is very interesting. So let's say,
Not something.
faster than light travel is impossible. Let's say time travel is impossible. Does it mean that suddenly a whole bunch of science fiction turn into fantasy, right? That's where things get very interesting now.
Let me ask you a question because Tristan just got in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you consider Star Wars as science fiction?
I would say it is science fiction.
Because the topic actually started by I actually don't think Star Wars as a I actually put Star Wars as fantasy with slightly F1 settings
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't the stuff that they did it doesn't involve like sciencey stuff at all.
Yeah. Well, I would say there is a spectrum, right? You would
Yeah.
put it on a spectrum between a very very science fiction and like very very fantasy at the other end.
I think
And
probably it's the way you put it is it's not mutually exclusive.
yeah, I wouldn't say it's like overlapping.
Yeah.
I guess you would say it like it could be overlapping, but I would think about it as like on a spectrum. Like see both of like what was swimming was saying, right? Like faster than light or time travel, like if like confirmed like if they were impossible, right?
Yeah.
But what fantasy and science fiction they do well,
I'm
and
gonna put out a
what
poll
yeah,
Facebook.
what makes it very interesting is because they both respect causality, right? Like they have these rules that make it so let's say let's say time travel is possible, then you follow along that thought, right? And then okay, what happens? Then there's the causality over there, and how is everything preserved? How does everything connect together that that say time travel is not is makes it possible. And I think the best science fiction works make it so the causality is so well preserved that you can't help but believe that oh, this could actually be true, even though there's this disconnect in your mind that oh, we know that this is not true or this is not yet happening, but what if, right? So that makes you say what if. It's because they craft that kind of world around that topic.
And
That's why,
also the viewer can be magical.
yeah.
Believe it or not, even though
Like maybe
a very good example is yeah.
yeah. Sorry, you were cutting out, or maybe I was cutting out.
So
I'm not
the
sure.
world can be magical. So for example, we cannot explain gravity yet. We know there's a force of gravity. We make a whole calculation based on gravity. That's how we go to different part of the solar system. Gravity. We know this exists. We have a whole set of law out of it, but we do not know what it is. Another thing is you should read the book. It's called We Have No Idea. It's a book but by the author of PhD comic.
That sounds like our topic for every week. We have no idea.
Yeah. So, but it's by the author of
Jorge. How do you pronounce the name?
yeah Jorge and Jorge Cham and Daniel. They also had a podcast, by the way. I recommend it once. So why I like to talk about that, because even though the whole world of fantasy had a whole magical law of nature happens, But it's not so clear cut because the real world is magical. We had a lot of things that we don't know that just happens, right? What is the basis of the universe? Is it string theory or something else? We have no idea. Why we only build this certain kind of so the real world can be magical. That's my point. So
Maybe
it's our world fantasy.
yeah. So maybe like speaking of the magical kind, right? Maybe the with the poll that Ji Young is creating, that maybe the reason why Star Wars doesn't feel so science fictiony is that um, it doesn't have that. So so let's say you have um, these alien races, right? And
Yeah.
then you have like I forgot the name of the blob, the one that took Princess Leia. I forgot his name. Jay Judd.
Or Jabba the Hutt.
I thought yeah I was thinking of Jafar, but no, that can't be Jafar. Uh, Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the
Yeah.
Hutt.
So let's say like there's Jabba the Hutt, right? But it does not revolve around Jabba the Hutt being a hut, right? I mean, it could have been like any kind of person. It's like it can be a person. It can be like some like an it can be a normal person, but it's just it just so happens that he's an alien
Yeah.
hut.
It can be just a you can just replace a story as
Yeah, correct.
it's a troll.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so maybe that's the reason why it's because it's magical just because it's magical for Star Wars. Whereas the science fiction stuff that where it's magical is that let's say Star Trek, right? Like the
Mhm.
tricorder that has like these like magical way to diagnose your health suddenly. And
Mhm.
they've designed a lot of like story and causality around that particular tricorder, so much so that
Yeah.
it becomes even an X prize. Like create a tricorder, and we'll even in the real world we will
Yeah.
like companies will reward you for creating this kind of thing because
Yeah.
it's integral to the story, and it might be magical, but
I think
story
it's hard
revolves
because
around these things.
once certain science reach a certain advancement, you look like magic, or everything
Hmm.
will feel like magic. Just I was also the question like I'm not sure if you guys follow Doctor Who. It's similar to the tricoder, but Doctor Who actually has something called sonic screwdriver that can basically solve everything or diagnose everything.
Hmm.
So, but because the fans actually accept it because uh, the Doctor, which is a Time Lord, which is actually a very advanced race, is like probably they have something that we human being cannot understand.
Yeah, but then again, so some that screwdriver, at least from the way you describe it, sounds very much like a Deus Ex Machina, right? It
Yeah,
doesn't. It's there to get the main character out
yeah.
of a situation, but it's not there to like to move the story along. I
Yeah.
mean, it's there. It's a plot device, but it's not there as the interesting part of the
It's a
story.
move to move stuff along.
Yeah, it's just like oh we've been stuck in this plot hole for a long time. Then the
Yeah,
screwdriver comes in, and then that's it. But
yeah.
it's not the topic of the story. Whereas let's say the Star Trek, well, I guess you would say the Star Trek is closer to science fiction than Star Wars is, right?
Yeah.
So the Star Trek, I forgot which. Maybe assuming you would remember that that code that they follow, where they should not interfere with non-spacefaring civilization or something.
Oh, Prime Directive. Prime
Which directive
Directive.
is it? The Prime Directive. Is it the
The
Prime
Prime
Directive?
Directive.
Yeah. So
Yes.
the Prime Directive, right? It sounds very science fictiony because
Yeah.
story revolves around. It's not there to move the plot along. It's the topic of it, and it creates these assumptions that there would be like non-spacefaring civilizations and there would be spacefaring civilizations. It poses a question of what if you interfere, and what if this weird captain
Mhm.
just like throws away the prime directive and actually does interfere, and then what would happen, right? It asks those questions, what if. Whereas like again, Jabba the Hutt, what if Jabba the Hutt was human? It doesn't matter. What
Yeah.
if the screwdriver was not a screwdriver but like I don't know, like a wrench? Doesn't matter, right? So all of like it because of these devices, then it becomes closer to what we would think of as science fiction than non-science fiction.
Then how about Star Wars then?
Yeah, that's what I'm
It
saying.
sounds
That
like we're picking on Star Wars.
yeah, parts of it are not as, so that's why I would say I put it on a spectrum, because like um Jedi being Jedi, for example, that's like
Yeah,
that
Jedi is very magical.
yeah, it is magical, but it was no, the midi-chlorians aspect probably make it science fictiony.
I tried to
Like what
explain it and failed.
There's
I'm
nothing,
sorry.
there's nothing sciencey with Jedi Order. I mean, to be honest.
hey, it
No, it's
works
about
because you need to have like certain density of midi-chlorians in your cells, right?
Yeah.
No,
yeah. I think that is late in the story, but yes.
actually, it's early in the story. It was made in the prequel.
Oh,
So
really?
unless
I mean,
Okay.
you're some of the people who
that
don't
actually
like
sounds like
consider
certain.
prequel.
Just that sounds like in the certain fantasy setting, like certain people are born with powers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Like I mean, that's the story of X-Men,
yeah.
right? Which I would
Yeah,
say
that's the power. That's the
science
story of
fiction.
X-Men precisely.
Yeah, we're gonna go down the slippery slope.
Yeah.
What do you consider X-Men as?
No, but I think that what the failure of Star Wars to actually transition into legit science fiction is they should have like dove into the the science of midichlorians or all of these things. Like what how does it, like how does the system work?
If
It
they
never
expand,
really explained
if
it.
they expand that, probably it will actually be more
Yeah.
sciencey.
It became the screwdriver, like the sonic
Yeah,
screwdriver plot device. Like, oh, okay,
correct.
he has these powers because of midichlorians. He's the chosen one because he has the most concentration of midichlorians ever in history, whatever. And that's it. That's the reason why, and
But
became a
there's
plot
no
device.
reason like why what actually causes that.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah, there's no explanation.
yeah, how does a
Just not really.
midichlorian create a new life form without like as if like with immaculate conception, for example? I don't know. So it's
But
so sorry.
but you need to also understand, Star Wars is also heavy in mythology.
yeah,
That is something that science fiction don't actually have. They do not have a
the good versus
mythology.
evil is very typical, if I would say.
Yes. Whereas in science fiction, you're generally okay, generally good, but
I
they
wouldn't
also
say
do not
so.
have a heavy mythology behind it.
Like Dune, for example, has a lot of theology on there, like lots of religion, like the
Yeah,
Freeman.
but I
Like
think
actually, the most of the story revolves around religion and the conspiracies that the Bene Gesserit had seeded along the eons, and like later on took advantage of, right? Like they seeded all of these mythologies. The Freemen were like believing in them, and then
yeah,
they basically like abused their positions on knowing all of these mythologies. Oh, okay, I'm going to do this. Like we're looking for this Kwisatz Haderach, and then whatever. Like they're basically just scaring the children in that case. And depending, I guess, on how the plot device, that like religion is used as a plot device, it can be like science fictiony. It can be like, okay, it's a satire of the current religion, or whatever. Like
Yeah,
it
so
really depends on how it's used.
yes, because a good example of religion as a satire, I believe, is actually Stargate SG-1.
Hmm. I haven't watched SG1.
actually, I'm one of the biggest fan of the show. Like I watch it every
Yeah,
year.
it's a very good show. But turns out that human essentially conquered world, primitive world, because they have better technology.
Not human. It's
But they do have a lot of mythology.
the predecessor of a human. Like we're just a colony.
Yeah.
It's actually in a way pretty
Yeah.
similar. In a way, Stargate is a lighter tone, but in a way, in a more,
Yeah.
it's the plot is actually similar to Battlestar Galactica, but Battlestar Galactica actually is more serious in
Yes.
terms of treating the mythology of the world and how it come to be.
Correct. Another good example of mythology in science fiction is actually in the game Homeworld.
Oh, I didn't follow that. So
So Homeworld, it's hard to play the game now. I know you guys don't have a Windows machine nowadays. I know some of you guys might have. Homeworld, Revolve is a story very similar to Battlestar Galactica in a way that they run away from their home from their current planet.
Yeah.
Then they try to find in Battlestar Galactica they try to find a lost colony. In Homeworld they try to find their home planet. And turns out that there's a mythology because there is a faction. It's not a spoiler, so I'll just say it. There's in the original in the prequel, in the prequel that they created much later is that once they develop, there's a reason why the species should not develop faster than light travel, even though there's a lot of evidence for it.
Oh, it actually reminds me of something. I'll let you finish first.
So the thing is, they do not understand that it's 1,000 years since this species of intelligent being stay on the planet, do not have existence of space technology. They've forgotten about their capability for faster than light travel and all that. But they only had a warning from their ancestor that says that you should not try faster than light travel. And there's a cult that try very hard to stop them, right? And turns out that there's a good. And turns out that when you first go into Homeworld, then you're faster than light travel. Then you got attacked because you broke a treaty that you do not know about. They know what is a treaty, but because it's so long since then, nobody knows why they are not allowed to have faster than light travel. So that's a story about something that's very logical turned into a mythology, right? And that is very interesting. So mythology, in a way that I go eat my word, in a way that fantasy is heading toward mythology.
So gonna eat his food.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat a lot of it. But the mythology in fantasy often is like the law of the world. This God created this, or this is how it is, and that's it. But they also the way they describe it, so that's another thing altogether. Because as I say, I'm more confused than I had before because in the fantasy world, the law of nature is actually magical. Magic is a fundamental force of nature. In a way, gravity is very magical because it's a fundamental force of nature. Both magic and gravity we do not have a strong idea how it works. In gravity, on the other hand, we know how it works because that's how we have a space program. Magic is a lot of ritual. There's a difference, right?
How about Linux in Windows? Is that science fiction?
No, put it this way. I'm going to put it this way. For a lot of people, what we do in real life is magical.
I
think
put it this way, in a more serious note, gonna be a bit of we're gonna steer the topic to another part is that when we are too detached from the reality or just like history, because just like 100 years ago something happened 100 or 200 years, just as simple as 200 years ago. And when history or the lesson became legends, so the line is actually pretty much blurred because people no longer treat just like in certain religion teaching, they forgot the fundamentals. I mean, some of the fundamental values there's a reason for it. But when people dietify, I mean, make it, I mean, put
summarize.
Meanings, yeah.
No, what do you mean?
deity, make it. I mean,
They make it.
They
They
make-
assign a cause to
Yeah.
gods or supernatural.
when they make it
entity.
holy, then it's actually immutable.
Yeah, deify.
Yeah,
So,
deify. Yeah.
Correct.
So I think that is similar. I don't know.
Yes,
The real
this
world?
to me is very similar to the story of birth control.
What that has to do?
Okay, so put it this way, it's still taboo in many religions to have sex outside of marriage. They have sexual intercourse outside of marriage. But remember, 100 years ago, bearing a child is a problem. As in, there is no way to prevent. There's no good way to prevent you from your partner from being pregnant, other than the fact that it's a same-sex relationship. But let's not go on that part. And that's a problem because in some society you have to, we don't have we have to split up your properties and all that. So you want to make sure that it's really your kid and all that. It get really complicated really fast. As a result, there's real consequences for sexual intercourse outside marriage. Correct? But now we have technology.
You're the expert now.
So now there's still taboo within community, even though we have ways to prevent it, right? That's the deification because it turned it into a sin. Now you have something that, even though we have ways to fix it, same thing. Another one is this is my favorite. I'm not sure whether it's historically accurate. It's actually the lower class of the case of Indian people. So the lowest case,
caste system.
yeah, they will actually work on sanitary work and all that because it's dirty. And those days, 1,000 years back, working on those means also getting easy disease, which is why they separate between the classes, right? Maybe it's because of disease, because as you go down to do your sanitation work, it's dirty, you got all sort of disease from there. They try to avoid it as a result, they split into different group, right?
Yeah, and that time, caste system is actually very common around the world.
Correct. So, and also, in a way, you're right that people do not remember the reason certain rules are being set because it is set in a time when people do not understand the science.
Bringing it back, like dragging the context back to what closest to us is like people forget the reason behind agile.
Yeah, people do not. Software development, my favorite. It goes back to my favorite topic of cargo counting.
Yeah, but you see, good science fiction attempt to explain that in a different way, right? When people forget, like let's say Stargate, right? So, like people were worshiping this, like Amun-Ra or all of these like Egyptian gods, and because they didn't know any better, and then we thought that Egyptians made deities out of the sun, out of the moon, and whatever, and then eventually, once we get like gate technology and Stargate, we come back, and then we realize we were wrong all along because there were actually like alien people who were actual like with godlike powers over there. So it's like turning the concept on its head. Like we thought they were ignorant, but we found out we were ignorant in another case. So that's one way of like making it interesting and making it like making a story out of causality. Like what if what you believed it was actually not there? So I'm not sure about like again, Star Wars is less of that because you can replace a lot of like magical scientific things there with non-magical with non-scientific but still magical stuff. Like you can replace all of the AT-AT walkers with dragons, let's say, or dinosaurs, and still like it's still a good story. So
no, I think you use the wrong analogy because lost knowledge is not common in Star Trek and Star Wars. In Star Trek, there's an episode for that.
No, I think
a more popular example for that is actually
I think the
Warhammer.
difference is Star Trek. At least they're trying to explain things.
Correct. But for lost technology, the better example is actually Warhammer 40k.
Yeah, but it's a similar case where things become like legends instead of science.
Yes. And also another good example, again in computer games, Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is a world where robot behaves like animals, and we human hunt animals for part, but humans do not remember how the robot are created and why robot are created and all that. And they're called an AI in the game. I know you guys are PS4, so I will spoil it. In the game, there is giant artificial intelligence being computers, right? But because this guy, the human, do not have the knowledge of artificial intelligence, they don't have a concept, so they consider artificial intelligence as spirit. So that's the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. It's very sciencey. We know how the technology works, but it will talk to the people in that world that do not understand technology, so they attribute magic to the technology. In a way, it's similar to your uncle and your Windows 10 machine.
So Ming, I think you should play Near Automata. I think you will enjoy it.
Yeah. It's on my list actually.
You should when if Steam sales are still there, you should get it because it's really interesting. Like
Yeah.
one thing, for example, many of the named characters in Near Automata are named after philosophers. And that will already tell you about the game.
Yeah.
So
I actually have soft spot for post-apocalyptic world where we do not know knowledge and technology. One book I really on my list to read is actually Cantible of Leibowitz. I should share the links as well. I learned this.
Yeah, sorry. Continue. Yeah.
I learned this from the episode of Extra Credits Science Fiction. Canticle of Leibowitz is where they do not have knowledge of the world because humans have lost their knowledge. In a way, it's very similar also to Unattacked by Neil Stephenson. So there is some lost knowledge, but
would you consider Factorio as science fiction?
Yeah, and here's why. Everything in Factorio, one reason why I think Factorio is science fiction because everything, however modern it is
made by human. Factorio is history. You go to a new place, you build stuff, you extract resources from there, then you kill the native. Sounds familiar to you?
Yes, but as a story, they have one element that's important for science fiction. The machine can do wonders, but the machine is ultimately built by you, a human.
So it's similar to Civilization then.
Correct. Correct.
And so in that line, you'd also consider that as science fiction.
Yes. Science. Fantasy is more of you have the ability to do things, but you cannot explain it.
Okay. Path of Exile?
Huh?
Path of Exile?
I do not play the game yet.
Fantasy?
Diablo.
Diablo.
Diablo would be a fantasy because Diablo would be a fantasy because one is a setting. Second is the power is given but not explained.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no.
It's explained. You're Nephilim.
So, but how does, in what kind of law that is similar to us, which is very important, where that kind of power is possible because you're such creature.
So how about Avatar? Not the
Avatar?
not the Jim Cameron. Not that one. Avatar, the Airbender thing.
The Airbender.
Yeah. The Airbender is definitely magical because the power is from people, and it's not explained why the people.
But that is actually something that's called a hard magic system, where everything
hard magic system, correct?
So there's a lot of rules, and it's well explained. There's like lots of like very clear lines what can happen.
Yes.
And it's very like, isn't that how science works? Like, this is, you have a pattern, you explain it, and you can do these things, but you can't do this
Correct.
thing.
But here's there is rules and all that, right? There's rules and all that, but it's not.
I
So
think the
first
one
one is
the series that blur the lines is actually Doctor Who.
yeah,
Because
correct. Doctor Who's.
there's I forgot the name. There's like these enemies of an alien race which they look like witches.
Yeah.
So the way they use their technology is like similar to us casting spells, but it's actually just commands to their whatever machines or whatever technologies that they have. So it's actually in a way blurred the line between this. So
But in fantasy setting, you may talk a lot about the power, but they do not explain it scientifically. There's rules how to use it.
there's no
Uh, So they do not explain what law of nature why you can.
certain high fantasy they do explain, like Wheel of Time, they have an explanation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like let's say in Avatar, for example, like maybe that is scientific because they just explained that the world is made out of four elements, and some people
Correct.
have the ability to manipulate them on a certain ways, and then some people can like metal bend because they thought of a different way. Like, they everyone has been using earth bending, but someone thought of bending the earth inside the impurities in the metal, which I think is quite scientific because that's
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
scientific,
there is
but
a exception.
how why is it that only certain people can bend?
Because they were the ones who actually thought things through. See, in the next, what was the sequel? Korra, right?
Yeah.
Korra, the waterbender. I don't know what's the subtitle of the second one. Korra something. Uh, there's now like a whole police force of metal benders because once someone figured it out, because it's like a hard magic system, then that means it can be replicated,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
It's a
So
system.
it's a principle that once
Yeah.
someone figured it out, then other people can do it because now we know how it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
People can do it.
Or similar to I think you were not in just now. The
Mhm.
anime series of Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It blurred the line between like there's actually a rules like how much you basically it's like chemistry. You have to mix this and that together
Yeah.
in order to get this, but it's actually very magical as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another hard magic system. I guess again on the spectrum, it like, so I was just talking about the Avatar, like to find out where your boundaries are, right? And I would say it's closer to science fiction than sorry, closer to fantasy than science fiction. And
But
same with Full Metal Alchemist. I would say
yeah.
I would call it closer to fantasy than science fiction, although there are a lot of elements of science fiction. Uh, there because it does talk about causality, it does talk about like all of these hard magic principles, etc. But
Yes.
it does not go into a lot of, like, it cannot replicate it. It cannot see a lot of replication in the world that we are in right now, in the real world.
Correct. And that is actually a very important part because uh, in fantasy is often about how people wield the power. In science fiction, we use
I
a
think
particle accelerator. We build tools. We build tools. That's the important part. We
I
build
think my
tools to
conclusion
wield.
is that the at least science fiction is something that we can achieve,
Yeah.
probably
Mhm.
can achieve with our
Yeah.
our like pre-existing knowledge. Of course, there will be something that is down like time. I think the X-Men actually is the only series that make the space travels more realistic because they with all the G and
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
I think
So
at
in the,
least science fiction is something that we can attain. But
so in this case, is Iron Man or Captain America science fiction?
Often yes, even though the element doesn't work the
yeah,
way it is, but it's fine. Often, when you have to do something in science fiction, it's okay to have a different element, but you cannot have special power by itself. So that's
Yeah.
the common thread between science fiction. There's one difference between what we call science fiction versus
The comments. Do you have any comments? Okay. Please
yeah.
say. Yep. He actually say like but they're trying to explain after gap of information meets and proven workable.
Yes.
Trying to explain it's something that close more tangible that probably things that we might have in the future.
Correct.
Yeah, so like Captain America is something tangible. It's like super
Yeah.
soldier serum, basically like a drug that you inject and
Yeah.
it makes people. It's like a super steroid, basically, right?
Yeah. Well, you have
Or
to use
Iron
some
Man.
special beam and all that, but
Yeah,
yes.
Iron Man is possible after if you can solve the energy issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Even though it may be magical, but it's done by human hand, right?
So,
It's
and I
something that
guess
you have
like
to build.
Guardians
You have
is
to build.
less of a science fiction than it's more fantasy because it might be on the same world, but it does not revolve around like like the human ingenuity.
Yeah. What show?
Uh, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of Galaxy, yes, but it's okay. On the other hand, it's okay not that it's not human,
but you
and
see,
it's
I
created by a sentient
think
being.
we need to come. We need to have a second part of the series.
Yeah.
Because if you add in Infinity Stone, that is very fantasy. Right?
Yes.
I
Because
don't know. Maybe that's like Avatar, right? Like it's a retelling of the assumptions. What if the beginning of the universe, like these six, are like the fundamental forces that shape the universe? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. On the other hand, okay, I'm going to end with this. Despite I had a very strong opinion on what is fantasy, our work is not too different from the fantasy setting because our chemistry is done on quantum, is
Yeah.
explained on a quantum level.
No, it's actually especially fantasy because agile.
So,
you believe that when you follow this, everything will just work.
so chemistry works on the level that it's very
Okay.
magical. It's actually very magical. Gravity is very magical, right?
Yep.
It's there. We know the rules
I think
for it. But
I
we don't
think
apply
quantum
it.
physics actually blurred the line.
Yeah, quantum physics is weird. That's how they can explain chemistry. But on the other hand, we don't actually. It's as fundamental as things go.
I think we have to wrap this up, and we
Yes.
probably need to follow up this up like next week. At least we have a
Yes.
topic.
Yes, and we need to. And I need to invite people online to actually do an interview about AngularJS.
Yep.
Conference.
Yep. I think that's about it. We have to wrap
Yes.
this up. Right.
So looking forward for part 2. I think.
Remember to subscribe.